Welcome to the Vibe Business Podcast, bringing positive business vibes to take you to a new level. My name is Nomi Farouk, and after a decade of working with businesses, it's time to inspire the next generation, chatting to the most influential business people of today. Today, we're speaking to Becky Field, a personal and business development coach from Westfield Coaching. Nomi here from Street Business and Vibe. We've got someone very special here today, someone I know quite well through mentoring groups that we've done before. Her name is Becky. She's from Westfield Coaching, and she's a business coach, a bit more than a business coach, to be honest, but she'll explain. So yeah, thanks, Becky, for joining us.
Oh, thanks, Nom. It's lovely to be invited.
Thank you. Cool. So let's give audiences a bit of a feel for who you are. So if you could just give us like a brief introduction to Becky and Westfield Coaching.
Okay, thanks, Nomi. Yeah, it was great how we actually met, and one of the questions that you posed to me when we were in a particular group, you said, you know, what's the difference? How do you keep your boundaries between being a life coach and a business coach? And I remember saying to you, actually, you know, it's never actually about the business. Because I work, you know, I initially started out as a life coach, so I worked with personal circumstances. But as my business developed with Westfield Coaching, what I found was the people who came to me were actually the sole traders or owners of small businesses. And what I was working with was actually common themes that ran through these people, which were things like boundaries, which were like validating what their core values were. It was also a lot was about saying no, and how do people say no but also get the results that they want within their business. So yes, I call myself a personal and professional coach, which you'd think, well, I hope I am professional. But actually what I mean is, you know, I work with the people and I work with what they bring to me. And whether that be within their business or in their personal lives, whatever that is, we can work it. So I'm a solution focused coach, which means that I work with what they bring at that time and where they want to go to. So that's how I work.
Great. Sounds good. Yeah, I remember that conversation that we had because we were trying to break down what it is you offer. And I was saying, well, if I need help in business, I'll get a business coach or a business mentor. If I need help mentally, I'll get a psychologist or a shrink.
Yeah.
And maybe if I need a six pack, I'll get a personal trainer, or I'll self motivate myself. You kind of broke it down and said, you know what, they're all kind of linked, because you know what you do in business and what you do in personal and your mindset, it kind of overlaps, and you know you can't really have one without the other. And if you do, it doesn't last very long. So it's kind of quite eye-opening in terms of that. So you know that is actually a key thing of what you do is there is personal and there is business, and it's all kind of one thing. You know, the person is one entity at the end of the day. So yeah, that was quite good. So how did you get into this, setting up your business and getting into coaching?
Okay, so this is I'll try and keep it short, but I started doing some counselling courses around about 13 years ago. After my mum died, I went through some bereavement counselling, which was solution focused. And like most people, if you've had some trauma in your life, you really want to help other people. So I started my training within counselling. And I did level 2, level 3. And I also did a solution focused brief therapy course, which taught me about solution focused therapy. So it's about working with where you are and where you want to get to. So that was what appealed to me. So, and when I did my training for counselling, it was more person centered and it focused on the backstory, I suppose. So I discovered really that wasn't the way that I wanted to go. And recently, before I started Westfield Coaching, it's kind of like I read this book called The Big Magic by Liz Gilbert. And everyone will know her from probably Eat, Pray, Love if you know that book or the film. And she wrote a book called Big Magic, and it talks about if you get an idea about something, which I had 13 years ago through bereavement counselling, about helping other people in these situations. Unless you nurture an idea, it will actually go on to somebody else. Whether you believe this or not, it was absolutely changed my world. So then I think, well, okay, so when I did my counselling training and then my solution brief therapy, then we're talking a few years later, that idea came back again. And although I was in teaching, so I've been in education for 20 years, what I actually did was bring those skills, the counselling, the solution focus, into my teaching, because I worked with the most vulnerable of students and adults as well. So the idea came with me all through those years, really. And then when I read this book, it talked about when it comes back to you, you have the option again of nurturing it. And then I was lucky enough to be made redundant. And I know that sounds bizarre, but I was lucky enough to be made redundant and given some money. And I thought it's now or never. So that's when I started up Westfield Coaching with the skills that I already had. But then I decided at the same time, so as I finished in that role, I undertook the start of my Westfield coaching programs with the British School of Coaching, and I wanted to become accredited and qualified within coaching as well. And what I learned through that time was that I wasn't automatically equipped with the skills for coaching. Because you think, oh, I've been a teacher and I've been an educator for 20 years, so surely I have these skills. But the reality of it was I had to learn a new set of skills. So I was really, really lucky and to be able to qualify and become accredited as well. So I nurtured that idea, and Westfield Coaching was born.
Great, that sounds good. So you come from a teaching background, right? So you were a teacher. Was it high school, or what kind of teaching?
Well, I worked in 16 to 19 for 14 years, and then I did, as I left that, I did my QTLS, which enabled me to qualify and teach in high schools as well. So
cool. I guess it just shows that it's never too late to start a business.
Absolutely. I'm not old.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like people go into corporate society and they're there for like 10, 15, 20 years, and think it's pointless. Like they might have a passion, or they might have, and it can be a bit demotivating looking at these young 18-year-olds and 21-year-olds setting up a business straight away. I'm thinking that's the way to go, but there's no one route to setting up a business, in my opinion, anyway. So
absolutely not.
Yeah, and if you've got a passion and you want to follow it, doesn't matter where you're at, you can just go for it.
I absolutely. I think we can find a lot of dissatisfaction when we're in a job for a long time, and I can say to people, there is a solution to this. And it's whether you want to go and take that solution and move forward with it. There's always options. Absolutely.
Nice, brilliant. So, like going more into, so obviously there's going to be a lot of businesses watching this. Maybe people thinking about setting up a business, or maybe people who can take advice from what you can give in your sort of daily practice. I mean, we can touch on a lot of topics, but I guess I'd like to touch on something. Mental health, perhaps, right now, and it's quite apt right now. Yeah, because we're 90% of us are sat at home now. Although that seems like a cool idea, I think maybe after 2-3 weeks, we're going to start to feel a bit more stressed. So it'd be interesting to know, firstly, what advice you could give to businesses working from home, freelancers, individuals, and anyone else working from home, really, on how to maybe stay on top of the mental health at this stage.
Absolutely. And I think we've got to be aware that not everyone deals with everything in the same way. It's like anything. For example, when my parents died, I'm the youngest of 5 children. We all dealt with it very, very differently. And I think we've got to, as business owners, or as whatever size of business, you've got to be aware, I suppose, that not everybody is dealing with this situation in the same way. So it might be that just what I would suggest is just keep that connectivity with people. If you're the boss, to check in with your staff, make sure they're okay, but also make it so that they can come to you if it's not okay as well, because I think just saying that they're coping or they're not coping, it isn't enough really. So, you know, just keeping those channels open and keeping in touch with people. And also, you know, you've got people, men and women, who are at home now with their children as well. So not only have they got a full-time job to do, they've also got homeschooling. They've also got, you know, maybe fights breaking out. I know I'm wrestling 2 dogs. That's totally different. But actually, you know, they probably feel even more alone and trapped than they've ever felt for a long time. I was speaking to somebody last night on one of my lives as well, and she said, and I agree with this, is, you know, try and keep a routine as normal as possible as what you would normally do for work. So, for example, my fella, he's working from home. He gets up at the same time. We both walk the dogs at the same time, and he sits at the desk at the same time, you know. And it's almost like keeping that routine, regardless of whether you sit there with your pajamas on, you know, that's a luxury we can do, or whether we, you know, or whether you sit there fully clothed in your attire that you would normally wear. But I suppose, you know, I think as well, what I would say is that a lot of people can be oversensitive as well. So usually when we get that facial connection and we talk to somebody, we can usually gauge expressions very, very well. Whereas if we're reading emails or we're sending each other WhatsApp text or messages, or however we're doing it, because of our fragile states at times, it might be that we're misreading emails, or we're thinking that you've not done something right, you know, and just, again, staying open and communicating what our fears are, if they are fearful. It just offers people a platform to say, do you know what, I'm not actually okay with this, I'm really struggling. And then just making yourself, as in if you're a boss, or if you know, have a number of people in your team, just making yourself available to be aware that not everybody is dealing with it in the same way.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's some good advice. Like, there is no blanket solution for everybody. Like, everybody's so different, and you probably know better than me how many kind of different personalities there are. But I think, you know, from experience, you do need to deal with people a different way, depending on who they are, what their personality is, what they're going through, what kind of because mental, it's all well and good talking about mental health, but obviously there's different types of, you know, mental issues that go on across the spectrum. So yeah, some good sound advice there. So in terms of like, if I'm a person now looking for coaching, and I approach you, what is the process you go through? Like, what is it? You know, where would you start, and what would you look to do with that person?
Okay, so any coach or any sort of therapist would give you a free consultation. Now, this isn't a massive long one. This is about a diagnosis of whether I am the right coach for you. So, for example, if someone comes to me, they come on a pre-discovery, they call it, or some people call it a chemistry session. But it's basically a phone call where we talk about what it is that is bringing you to coaching. And then as a coach and somebody who follows an ethical code of practice as well, I need to make sure that I am a right fit for you, and also that you're right. You're right. The other way around as well. Sorry. Because, you know, if I try and take on something that I am not qualified for or is not within my remit, then I'm doing an injustice to the person. So it's really important to have a conversation first. And if another coach or another therapist is better suited, I would refer. It's part of the code of conduct for me to refer to the appropriate help that's needed. So people can get in touch with me by my Facebook page, my website, LinkedIn. However, you know, I'm readily available a lot of the time on social media, whether it be within the next 24 hours or however long. Just, you know, I will get in touch with you. Then we do a call, and if it's and if you think it's good to go, then we do an initial first session. So what I try and say to people is, it's not that I offer a few outs. And what I mean by that is, we'll do one session. And if you feel that it's worked and that you feel you can benefit from more, then I will offer the package, which is 5 sessions, but you actually get a 6th one free. The reason I do that is because coming to coaching, it's got to be led by the people who come to it. So as much as I would love to keep everybody for 5 sessions, 6 sessions, however, if it's not right, or they feel that, do you know what, they've got all the answers they need within the power hour that I'm offering, or within the refocus sessions that I offer, then absolutely brilliant. I've done my job, you know. So that's how we start, with one initial session, and then I ask you, do you want to continue? Do you think we should book a next one in? How did that go for you? And really give me that feedback so that we know that it's working.
Cool. That's really good to know. I think a good thing there, what you said, was about the ethical coaching. So like, if you feel like people aren't right, you would refer them or advise them elsewhere, which is quite good, because I don't know a huge amount about the industry, but I'm sure there's people out there just want to get the numbers in, want to get the money in. And, you know, in the back of their mind, they might know that. I know it happens a lot in the personal training world in terms of fitness. I don't care if they can help you or not, but as long as you're paying them 100 or 150 pound an hour, and I see it all the time, their physiques don't change, or they just keep them on and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? So like, I'm sure, like, you know, that's really comfortable. I mean, really reassuring to people that, you know, you would do that, and you're looking out for their best interest. So I think that's brilliant. Brilliant. What do you do with someone who doesn't have any goals, or is not sure what their goals are? Because a lot of the time people say, and it's me growing up as well, what are your goals? And you need to know what your goals are, what your exact goals, and we can work towards it. But to be honest with you, a lot of people, I don't know, me included, may not have a clear set of goals. So what do you do with that kind of person?
So then, well, that kind of person sounds awful, doesn't it?
I know, yeah, it's me anyway.
Well, the great thing is about coaching is that, you know, this is my promise to everybody. There is always a solution, and there is always something that can be tapped into. And I think this is where I can bring in my teaching experience, because I worked with kids who slipped through the net. And I worked with them who had no goals. You know, what did they want to do? So what I had to do in that case, and what I do with people who come to coaching, and a lot of people don't actually like that word goal, you know, which is a shame, because it's part of the grow method. But, you know, what are they trying to achieve? It might be, what is their ideal, which is a great solution focused question. What does their ideal day consist of? And but some people might not know what that is. Like you say, they haven't got a clue. But if I said to them, what would you hate to do? Just describe to me your worst day ever. Okay. So once they start describing their day, which is the worst day ever, then you can glean from that what they actually want. You can glean from that their core values, what's important to them. And also you can say to them, so what would you rather have? And by them doing that and switching it around, because quite often people they know exactly what they don't want, which once you've got that out and on paper, you can then discover what they do want as well. So the part of me as a coach, the role that I play is I ask questions to get those answers out. And it's a beautiful, I call it like a beautiful picture that's being painted, that you might not see the colours that you're adding into the conversation. But then when I reflect it back as a coach and say, okay, you've said that you don't want this, does that mean that maybe, you know, that you would prefer something like this? And then once you start asking those questions, it gives them the platform to then really go, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I remember doing this as a child, or I remember I enjoy this. And then all of a sudden you start to see, as a coach, the life being brought back into them. You know, their eyes start going brighter, the smile starts happening, the body posture is completely different. And as a coach, it's just fabulous to see, you know. So even though they might say, I've got no goals, I don't know what I want, we'll find out what you want after an hour. I promise you.
That's good to know. That's quite reassuring. But yeah, I think you've touched on it there. It's easier to identify what you don't want. So like when I grew up, I could easily point at stuff and say, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be in that. I don't like that. And I don't, so it kind of narrowed things down for me as life went on, whether it's business or personal. So yeah, I think great method. You mentioned something there called Grow. What is that?
Oh, the Grow method. Yeah. So it's a model basically. And it's John Whitmore model, where basically I do it like a teacher. I think of it in a teacher's way. So if I had an hour, you've got 15 minutes that you can spend on the G, which is the goal. So that's where, I've got to come up with some creative word that's the G. But what's the goal from the session? What would they like to achieve at the end of the hour or the end of the 90 minutes, depending on how long they're with me? And then we discuss the R, which is the reality. So what is your current reality? So it might be like, I might say, do you know what? We're all at home. The reality is I've got 2 dogs fighting behind me on the bed. I've got, I'm available for Skype calls. This is my reality. But the reality also is that, everyone's scared. Or it might be, they might say, well, actually, I want to work full time doing coaching, but actually I'm a full-time accountant. So it's that, it's literally getting to the facts. And then we look at the O. So what are the options available? What opportunities are there? We think, okay, then. So if you want to transition into a different role, for example, you talked about these people who are in a full-time job, but actually wanting to change their profession. So what are the options to them? So we might say, do you know what? Let's talk about evening classes. Let's talk about how we can shift our hours of a working week so that we actually work 4 days instead of 5 days to focus on this creativity that you want to do. And then the W stands for the way forward. Okay, so we always end sessions, or I do anyway, on setting actions for the way forward. So if somebody's with me for a period of 6 sessions, for example, they don't leave the session without some actions that they have set for themselves. So it's important to know that I don't set any homework, as it were, but they have to. What's the point in coming to a coach if you don't want to move forward? So I encourage people to set actions so that they can move themselves forward. So that's where the way forward is the W of the Grow method. What's the way forward? And then they are accountable then to themselves, but also to me. So I support in between. So as they make these changes, I can support them in between by WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, however they choose, so that they actually are accountable to make these changes in their lives as well.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. No, it sounds similar to another model, but I think the Grow model is used in various different industries now.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've seen it used in sales as well, They use it over there as well. So yeah, interesting model. I mean, and way to approach things. It all makes kind of perfect sense to me anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of moving on to what is it? Obviously, we're in a situation right now with the coronavirus. It could last 3 months or 6 months. We don't know yet. There's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. We're on lockdown right now. We're obviously both talk to each other from home. There are other freelancers, startups, businesses everywhere, and I'm hearing all kinds of stories. But what is the best advice for people right now that you could give, like from your experience, or what you're trying to do in the next 3 months?
Okay, what I would say, because this is what I'm doing, so I've only got my experience to go with. I'm connecting. So when I said about referring people, if I'm not the right coach or the right therapist, I am connecting with these people in my direct network of where I promote, connecting with these people, trying to help them to form relationships with people who are available. So I'm using the time to make those really strong connections, which is great. What I would say is don't, take the time to really look at where you are, and I know that there's absolute trepidation that, for example, the reality is if I go through the Grow model, my goal is to be present, be sustained in business throughout all of this. So my reality is, that a lot of my clients are actually in a very similar position where their businesses had to stop. So they're very hands-on therapists, or their face-to-face contact within their business. So the income has literally stopped. So it's about biding your time and being aware that other people are in a very similar situation. But then you have a choice, you have a choice of whether you just lie down and think, oh, right, okay, there's nothing I can do, or you get to work. Okay, so I talk about action a lot with my clients, and I think to myself, okay, so we can all sit there behind a screen comparing ourselves on Facebook, comparing ourselves on LinkedIn, but the reality is what I'm doing is keeping myself visible the best way I can without being annoying. That's the biggie. And not overselling, because we're all conscious. What I've discovered from a lot of the sole traders that I'm working with who are in my business groups is we are all conscious of selling, because but at the same time, I say to them, you don't go to Tesco's and they let you walk out with a trolley full of shopping. They are still selling because they want to survive as well. So it's about adapting the offer. So what can I offer instead? So it might be Skype or Zoom coaching. It might be that you offer something for free. So I'm doing a lot for free, but with my own groups that have invested in the coaching with me, because I want to remain a steadfast support to them. So that's the difference for me, is that just being available. Like I said about bosses, if you're available to your key workers, then they will know that you've shown up for them time and time again. So stay visible, make connections with people, keep your name out there, but also be kind to yourself as well. I think that's important, because a lot of people think that they have to continually keep working. Now I have a diary, a 2020 diary, and I've got written at the top of each page, what did I do today to grow? And what I mean by that is, what have I done? And it could be a simple email to connect with somebody. It could be this podcast with you, Nomi. It could be that, you've commented on other people's posts on LinkedIn or Facebook, and you're still growing your brand, your identity, the person you are, and actually making these connections. So it all contributes, even though we might not get the monetary value in, which, but actually what we're doing is we are making a brilliant platform for when all this is over in about, hopefully, God willing, in about 3 to 4 I was going to say years then, months time, when we can emerge and actually be, we're there, we're standing, we're invigorated, we're inspired, we're innovative, and we have not gone anywhere. And I think that's the biggest hope that I can offer people.
Great. That's some great advice there, Becky. I totally agree with you, actually. 2 things for me there is action. It's not just about this period. It's like generally the difference between people who are successful and not successful. And this isn't the only thing, but one of the things is action, like serious action. It doesn't matter. Like the way I grew up was just to take action, because even if you're wrong, you've got somewhere to go. Like indecision is worse than wrong decision to me. So it's like, take action, rectify yourself if you need to, or just carry on growing. But that action bit is so important. But yeah, I totally agree with you. In terms of, so I think we're almost going 30 minutes now, so it doesn't feel like it at all, but yeah.
I know.
So yeah, just finally kind of going off now in terms of how do people get involved with you? If people need help, if people need some advice, or they want some free initial free consultancy, how do people get in touch with you? How do people follow you? What would you advise?
Okay, so the quickest way to get in touch with me is through my Facebook page. So it's Westfield Coaching, Design and Consultancy, or on my website, which is www.westfieldcoaching.com. And then there is a button where you can actually book a call with me there.
Right.
So that's the easiest way, and it'll come direct to me. And what I take then is your phone number, your email address. You select the time that suits you, and I'll get in touch with you.
Great. No, that's brilliant. We'll put all the links in the description, guys. So do check it out. And you are putting content up. I've seen it, and it's bright, it's colourful, and it's very informative. And you're doing the live sessions on Facebook as well, and people should tune into that, I reckon.
Absolutely, yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah. even if people might be a bit hesitant on following you, just go on the page and follow the page for now, like the page, and you'll get updates from Becky. And whenever you guys are ready, maybe you want to get in touch with her and progress yourselves and get somewhere in life, in business, in whatever you want, I suppose. But yeah, I know Becky for a while now, and I can confirm she's a wonderful person, a genuine wonderful person. So Becky, thank you so much for doing this for us today. Hope the audiences find it really useful. But yeah, thanks so much.
Oh, thanks, Nomi. All the best. Stay safe.
Thank you. That brings this Why Business podcast to a close. But not to worry, the next episode will be out soon. Like, share, subscribe, follow. You know the drill. Thanks for listening.
Game over.